Hello, I'm delighted to be here, and it's my pleasure, just put on my glasses so I can read. It's my pleasure to introduce Joanne Levy. Joanne's love of books began at an early age, and being the youngest and only female among 4 children, she was often left to her own devices and could frequently be found sitting in a corner and reading. And she's turned that love of books, of reading, into writing books for young people. This year, this year's book winner, Sorry for Your Loss, has already won numerous awards. It is the CJLA winner, and it's also a Sidney Taylor Awards notable book, Canadian Children's Best Books for Kids and Teens, and that's just a few of the awards that it has been nominated for and won. Sorry for Your Loss is a beautifully written book that deals with the Jewish rituals surrounding death while immersing the reader in a heartwarming story about love, loss, family, and the healing power of friendship. It is my pleasure to introduce this year's winner of the Canadian Jewish Literary Award for Youth, Joanne. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And your book.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Rona. And forgive me for reading, but writers do better when they write stuff down, so. Thank you to the Canadian Jewish Literary Awards, its sponsors and donors, and particularly the jury for this incredible honor. Many wonderful Jewish books for kids came out last year, and many written by respected colleagues and friends, so I suspect the job of the jury was a difficult one. It's an amazing honor that you found a little something special in Sorry for Your Loss that made you choose it as this year's winner in the Children and Youth category, for which I am overwhelmingly grateful. Verklempt is the word that keeps popping into my head, and I think it's times like this for which the word was invented. I'm going to try not to cry, but I can't promise. Writing is so often a solitary endeavor, and even after you publish a book, it can feel like screaming into the void. So receiving an honor like this is very validating, and to receive it for a book that is so personal makes it even more special. But before I get too gushy or teary, see, I predicted that was going to happen, I'd like to read a short passage, one of my favorite parts of the book. And to give you a bit of context, Evie Wallman's family owns a small Jewish funeral home, very similar to the one my dad manages in Hamilton, and she works there part-time in the summer, cleaning and keeping the fridge stocked and giving out tissues at funerals. She's never dealt directly with grieving families one-on-one before, until this day, when her mom has asked her to spend time with a boy who has just lost his parents in a terrible accident, while his uncle makes funeral arrangements. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well. Evie's attempts to console him cause him to lock himself in the bathroom. Remember how you said I'd be a good funeral director? Yes, Dad said. Yeah, well, you were wrong. That last word got stretched out because I was crying again. I don't think so, Dad said as he pulled me into a hug. I worried about slobbering all over his clean white shirt, but I couldn't help it. After I calmed down, I pulled out of his arms and mopped up the rest of my tears. Tell me what happened, he said, tugging me over to a pew where we both sat down. Once I was done explaining, I took a few deep breaths and crumpled the damp tissues in my fists. Grief is a difficult thing, Dad said, and losing a parent, let alone 2, is life-changing at any age. But for someone so young, well, I can't imagine how awful it must be. And I just made it worse, I said. Dad smiled sadly. You may not have helped, but I doubt you made it worse. Look, Oren isn't in a place right now where anyone can say anything that will help. He needs to work through his grief, and all we can do is be there for what he needs, even if what he needs is space and time to sort it out himself. It made sense, but I still felt like I'd messed up. And not some random girl who will talk his ear off? Dad nodded and sighed. I'm sorry to say you're probably right there, Evie, but you have to remember this isn't about you. Part of being a good funeral director, and even a good friend, is knowing that someone may not want to be consoled. They may not welcome your words of support, and you need to respect that. Someone else's grief is not for you to solve. Let Oren grieve in his own way. So that's just a little piece, one of my favorite parts of the book. This book was born out of grief, my own grief, after losing my mother after a very brief illness in 2013. After she passed in the hospital, she was transported to the funeral home. When she arrived, we got to see her one last time in the room marked private, where most people don't go. But as I stood there in the Tahara room, while it was the worst day and I was overwhelmed with grief, I was also weirdly comforted by knowing how she would be taken care of, knowing that she would be treated with the utmost respect. It didn't take away the grief, of course, but it let me feel okay as I could be in those circumstances, leaving her there and having her be cared for by the Chaver Kadisha, the volunteers who would prepare her body for burial. So it was that knowledge and comfort that inspired this book. Most people, especially kids, don't have that kind of behind-the-scenes access, and I wanted to sort of pull back the curtain on what happens to us after we die and what funerals even are. I wanted to give kids a safe space to explore death and funerals and show them that their loved ones would be literally cared for by the people who take their task very seriously. I also wanted to talk about grief and what it means and how to speak to people who are grieving, that it's okay to not know what to say, that what matters is being there, and that it's not about you, the consoler. And finally, and maybe most importantly, I wanted to honor my dad and the important work he does, along with the rest of the people who work behind the scenes to provide necessary and important services to people at their hardest times. I can't look at him or I'll start crying. He's here today and he's a modest guy, but I share this award with him because not only did he help me with the details and fact-checking, the literal writing of this book, but he was my greatest inspiration. I'd also like to extend my thanks to my agent, Hillary McMahon, who's also here, my editor for this and 4 other books, Tanya Trafford, and the entire team at Orca Book Publishers who supported this book from the very beginning. Also, a huge thanks to my extremely supportive husband, Deke, who has been there from the very first moment that I thought about writing for publication. It's his unwavering support over the years, shown in every way, from letting me talk out plot holes, to encouraging me to keep at it when the writing was difficult, to driving me all over to bookish events, including this one today, that has made every book I've written possible. Thank you all again for this honor, and now I'm going to sit down with my verklemtedness, and that is a word. Thank you.